All right, Clara, is she here?
Hi, I'm
Hi.
here. My name is Clara Smits, and I work at the organization IPA in Brussels. We do a lot of work on refugee rights and human trafficking in particular. We started by following the situation in the Sinai and writing books about that, and it's evolved to us becoming involved in broad range of issues of refugee rights, and particular Eritrean refugees, as a clear example of refugees that are in clear need of protection and still not getting it. So with that being said, we engage a lot with the European Union and in particular with the Netherlands. And I wanted to share some experiences, I think, there that we have learned. And the first thing is when you sit at the table with any officials, they will say, but what alternatives do we have? Why are we around the table? Why are they in Eritrea? The EU is in Eritrea not because they want to help the people, but they are in Eritrea because they want a seat at that table, and that is for geopolitical reasons. So how do you convince a country, I suppose, to stand on the side of the people's rights? I think you have to convince them that not only do they have stakes inside the country, but outside the country as well. And a way I think that has been successful in the Netherlands is by convincing them that what is going on inside the country with the Eritrean government being, or the Eritrean regime, I should say, extorting refugees in the diaspora, coercing them to pay diaspora tax, but also more recently, for example, in the COVID situation, asking people to pay a contribution for no one knows where it goes, of a minimum of extortion of people. And I think the Dutch government was really convinced by that argument. So not what is going on in Eritrea, even though it's very important, but for them it's just like geopolitical situation there. But what really interested the Dutch government is what was happening in their own country, and that made the Netherlands one of the most critical member states in the European Union. And with regards to the road building project, it wasn't only the European Parliament's pressure, but particularly was mentioned by the EU that member states had protested. And to my opinion, that has been more important than the European Parliament, no matter how much I love the European Parliament. In fact, the member states are the ones that vote on these projects. The Parliament doesn't have an official role, only an advisory role, which has been ignored many times, even though they've been very clear. So I think this time it was the member states, and which member states are critical. I know it's the Netherlands, I know it's Denmark, I know sometimes it's Germany, but now in Germany only 5% of Eritreans get refugee status. I mean, that's a dramatic drop while nothing has changed. So my main issue is, how do we convince countries here that it is their own internal processes that are being disrupted by the Eritrean regime? Because I think that is really going to convince them. And from there, then you can engage with them to really stand up for human rights. So how do we address things like the 2% tax? How do we address things like the harassments that many activists are victims of? Because that is their own citizens being harmed. So that was my main question. Thank you.
Thank you. So shall we have another question so that we can answer them together? Gaim?
Okay, thank you so much. I would like most of the people that spoke before me, I would like to thank the presenters and panelists, the Eritreans, but especially the friends of Eritrea who are spending so much time and energy and effort to solve the issues of refugees, and I really want to thank them. I just want to raise a couple of points. One is regarding the United States, how Eritreans in the United States can work with organizations that are helping refugees. I am part of the AFA movement in the United States, and we do have a small department that deals with refugees as well. It has not been as effective as we want it to be. But we've tried to work with some Congress members like Ilham Omar from Minnesota and John Gusay of Colorado when it comes to deportation of Eritreans issue, So we would really like to join our efforts with the organizations that are already doing that in maybe more sophisticated, more coordinated way. The other thing that I would like to bring up is the YACO movement has been working in uniting the effort to support Eritrean refugees in Sudan and Ethiopia. Specifically during the COVID-19, we realized that there was a big gap that needs to be filled to try to help the refugees. We understand that it's not enough. Whatever funds we've raised, it was not enough to cover all the gaps to cover the crisis in the country, in the refugee camps. But we try to show an effort, and one important lesson we've learned from that is, despite of the division among the Eritreans in all in the political environment, in the opposition specifically, when it came to helping the refugees, many people joined hands, belonging to different organizations. Even some people that support the Eritrean government even contributed some the money to that effort. So the second point that I would like to bring that was brought up multiple times here is the question of how we have so much issues that we need to solve, and yet we are so divided, and we don't prioritize our main challenges to be solved first. And to me, it's surprising when we have conferences and events like this. Most people would agree that this is a disaster, and yet we all belong to different organizations. After this conference, we will still go back to our organizations, still have our trenches and not still cooperate. So
can you make your question?
Yes. So my question is here, how can, especially the organizations that are working with refugees, how can the YACO movement that is working already in 7 countries, organized in a global level, but still trying to expand work with these organizations to help solve the issues of refugees? And I would like to get an opportunity maybe to have, as Martin mentioned, to have another event, maybe to organize this better outside of this conference, and then I would be happy to get the connections with the YACO movement. Thank you.
So, experts, any comment? Anyone who would like to comment on both Clara's and Farah's?
For Fikri, thanks, Fikri Gayan, for that. Please contact us, and we'll work through those issues with you at the U.S. end anyway.
Anyone else would like to comment on or answer any question on of the questions Farah and Clara brought?
Just briefly on Farah's point in terms of organizing some sort of a forum to discuss working relationship with refugee communities. Eritrea Focus would be more than willing to facilitate that discussion if you want us to do so. So do feel free to let us know.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Hate. The next person is Samson. Samson, can you unmute yourself and make your question brief?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sarah. My first question is to Hate. He actually said depriving the external fund that the Eritrean government gets could affect its power as it did in South Africa. That might be true, but how about the collateral damage to the Eritrean people? I am also looking at some of the discussions here. Is there a way that the fund can be channeled to other developmental projects because it might affect the people badly? And secondly, is there any work done to explain this to people, because it might seem at some point as a contradiction, because at some point we blame the government for economic problems, and we also try to bar the external fund that it gets. My second question is to Gabriel and Sigal. Thank you for your presentations. Actually, I was surprised because I'm interested now in refugees also. I can see the Eritrean refugees in Israel has been in a lot of difficult situations and a lot of vulnerability. It seems like you have done a lot of work, but how is life now in Israel? Is there still the uncertainty going on, or it is a bit better now? Thank you.
Thank you, Samson. Next question is Mohammed Hassan. Mohammed Hassan, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hey. Of course, yeah. Thank you so much. I am facing a little bit technical problem, so my camera is not working. I tried many times. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for the wonderful inputs and the hard work you do. Then I don't have a high profile like some of you, but I enjoy a reasonable amount of self-esteem. And this is the culture that I acquired in my exile here in Sweden. My name is Mohammed Hassan, an Eritrean refugee residing in Sweden. Rather, I spent most of my life in a refugee camp, and so I lived in my country, my town, my city of Abat when I was a child in the mid of 80s. I am a human rights activist, and I write articles in Arabic in many Eritrean websites. So, and I have a novel in the name of Season of Fishy. And fishy integral language is a fungal disease that affects corn and turn the cork from a whole grain into a bacterial bag in form of charcoal black. So it is similar to the result of the Eritrean struggle under the current regime. After work hard, you achieve nothing. The novel was a response to the dictator when he described the Eritrean youth who were fleeing from his hell. His victims, the individuals like me and you and many others, he described them as Kurdad. And Kurdad in Tigrinya language is a high that remains in the threshing floor after separating grain from it. So the farmers wait to the wind to blow and take it off, and then they get their
Sorry, Mohammed, you have 1 minute to present your question, please.
3 minutes, then I am okay. Okay, just let me come direct to the question. All of us, we know that in the 40s and the 50s, the Eritrean political parties were conducting their democratic activities smoothly as one of the first signs of a democratic growth and development in Africa. And there was a reliable group of newspapers publishing at that time. But in spite of this, advanced indicators was not possible to compare to the situation was in Ethiopia. However, the international democracies, the international community, the big powers stood as an obstacle to independence. You know, you can review the statement of the U.S. Secretary of State at that time. And then also they overlooked when the King Haile Selassie come against the federal system at that time, which was proposed by the United Nations. Now, after 50 years, at the London conference, which was held to make if there's a fall of Mengistu regime.
Mohammed, can you please make your question? Because we have a long list of people waiting to ask questions.
You say that we have 3 minutes. Is that right?
Yes, you had 3 minutes, yeah. But
then
you have used 5 minutes.
Okay. Just I want to ask Michael how he can make sure that this international institutes and democracies can help us to achieve a democratic change in Eritrea, because we have a history that they stood against the Eritrean will. So that's my question, and for Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Again, I would say just do it. You know, we can talk about how. We've heard the question asked again and again over the years. How do we do it? How do we do it? And our response is just do it. Get together, form a group, form an agenda, choose a leader, someone who can communicate well, and start communicating with your governments and institutions. There's no magic to it. Just do it.
Sarah, may I answer Samson's critical question in terms of foreign aid? The question you raised, Samson, is absolutely important and critical, and one needs to think it through very, very, very carefully. I fully accept the collateral damage that you mentioned. But the situation is, and one has to consider those issues very carefully. One, what assurance do we have that the foreign aid given to Eritrea actually goes to the people? Now, I mentioned the World Bank report earlier in my introduction. And their assessment is a significant part of the aid actually does not reach Eritrea. It goes to offshore bank accounts of the ruling party. Yeah? The same applies with the revenue stream from the extractive sector. So the people of Eritrea are not benefiting from aid, to my mind, and they're not benefiting from the sale of their precious extractive sector resources. Okay? Secondly, even if some of the money was to trickle down to the people, are we really saying for that money our people should be enslaved, tortured, raped, and killed? I've worked in the financial sector in London for a long time. I would work day and night to bring investment to Eritrea. I would love to do that if I knew our people would get benefit out of it. We have thought of this long and hard. This is not a decision you take lightly. You would not even have one family in Eritrea go hungry because of the action we take. We would not do that. Yeah? But on balance, we feel the only way we can bring change in Eritrea, where our people get the benefits of their martyrs. Yeah, our people, our martyrs died, gave their lives, so we can be free from Ethiopian oppression, but not to be enslaved by our own people. And that, for that reason, I believe calling for divestment in Eritrea, albeit a hard one, is the right thing to do.
All right. Thank you. Sigal and Gabriel, do you have any answer to Samson's question? How
Yeah,
are Eritreans living now? How is the situation of Eritrean refugees in Israel?
okay.
Before that, can I
Thank you.
say something about this for 2 minutes?
Okay.
Sorry?
Okay, first I will answer, maybe he will ask.
Can I say something? Okay.
I think the floor is for us to Israel.
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
First of all, thank you, Sami. Like I told you, he was my classmate and he's a doctor that we are like, the Eritrea is waiting for you, like one of the successful people like in outside of Eritrea. Still like in Israel, the situation is uncertain. The process for the refugees, the process for the refugee status determination is really like not good, not transparent. Like the rate is like below zero. Only 13 people are being accepted, even though that we have like the so-called group protection, but always we are like living in fear. We know the human rights organizations are fighting like to change this, but we don't know like how it will look like in the future. Like our hope is like the thing in Eritrea will be changed and will go to our country when it becomes safe for all of us. But I want to also like add to have the point like Samson raised about the fund that were being sent to Eritrea from the European Union or from other donors. For me, we need to fight for that. First of all, like this money, it doesn't go to the Eritrean people. If the government is like taking responsibility, helping like our people now in this critical issue, like in this coronavirus issue, all the countries all over the world are helping their people, but our people are being closed and dying are silently, and the regime is doing nothing. He's using it like for his security issue. Not only this, also we have like smart mafia in Eritrea that is exploiting even the Eritrean living in diaspora. If you can see the range chain, for example, if you send $100 to Ethiopia, it's like 4,000. But when it comes to Eritrea, it's like 1,400, and the value is zero. Who is benefiting? Is the regime, not us. Even if the money that we the people living in outside of Eritrea are supporting our people, but through using all this system, like from his like economic sectors, like from the Hegref, like economic sectors, from what you call the zero chat, like he is taking all the money like through all like illegal means, like going to Dubai and controlling the dollar, using for torturing the Eritrean people. If we can, for example, I don't know, we can correct me, like when our revolutionary army control Masawa, when the Eritrean people like in Asmara were dying, were the regime, like the outside regime, was being forced to let the food to Eritrea. If we can be like united, we can force the regime that we can, all the fund can go to Eritrea like in a food terms or something like that, and we can see if we have like the capacity to control the people can be assisted. Yes, we can do. If not, like all this economic measure is like helping the regime like to be overthrown. Like there is no, like I was like before I left in Eritrea as a punishment from the university protest, I was in the Kamare in one of the construction like Warsai Kalo. People were being used like for slave. All the construction, they just started to keep the use like a slave. But the fund, was the money, all the construction, no one is using. The university is closed. All the health sector are being closed. Nothing is there in Eritrea. So on this issue, I think we need to be fighting like in heart, like the regime not like to take any fund. That's what I just see. I don't know if I'm making a mistake. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Now, the next person, Mike, have you raised your hand?
I wanted to make sure that we got to the topic that everybody's keen on. What about when freedom comes to Eritrea? What do we do with advocacy then? And very quickly on that, Western governments, existing democracies, can step in. They can provide a number of specific things. They can provide financial support. They can provide technical support, which is different than financial support. And they can provide diplomatic support, finance, technical support, diplomatic support to strengthen the new democracy. So how does this conference and this presentation fit into that? It's all the same techniques and the same ideas for speaking with the democratic governments, but now applying it to these new, these additional tasks once freedom comes or begins to come. I think the takeaway is that everybody who's on this on this Zoom conference can feel free to not only use the information that's been presented here, but to come to the presenters and ask them for consultations. How do you do this? How do you do that? If and when we get to that point of freedom arriving, and not only those on this conference, all the other working groups in this larger conference all week long, they've had agenda items for what happens when Eritrea opens. They too can think of the resources that we've pulled together, our papers and so forth here, and us as individuals as resources for how to advocate with governments to help affect all of those things when freedom comes. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. The next person is Mabrato Mato Berhan.
Sarah, shall we take 3 questions at a time, because we've got 8 people and it's nearly 6:15. So if we take 3 questions at a time, that would be nice. Thank you.
Mabrato Ato Berhan.
Yeah, I'm on.
Dr. Mabrato.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, the presenters, for very nice presentations, and I admire all your efforts that you're trying to do to help people in the diaspora and also outside. My question is toward Sigal and Gebre, and it's regarding the Eritrean refugees in Israel. As far as I know, most of you do not have bank accounts, and you've suffered and you've left Eritrea, and you've worked very hard, and then as far as I know, you're investing back your money to Eritrea because you're not able to save your money in Israel. So the only way you could save your money is by investing is in construction in Eritrea. So it's a double whammy that you have suffered by the regime, and now you're propping the regime another way. So have you worked on that, or have you tried to gain bank accounts in Israel so that you're able to control your funds? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mabratam. Next person is Hassan Mahad. Hassan Mahad, can you please unmute yourself?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Hello. How are you? Can you see me? Yes. Yeah. I wanted to ask John. I wanted to mention to John is we have a very serious problem today, and I find it's an opportunity because he was talking about the refugee issues. We have thousands of Eritrean. They are been living in Saudi Arabia. Now, the Saudi Arabia, when the visa or the Iqama is violated, they told them to leave the country. Now, what happened is whether you have to go to jail or you can't, they don't have a job for them there, and they give them opportunity to leave the country without any charge. So those people who are asking them to leave to go back to the country, those who are flee from Eritrea 40 years ago or 50 years ago. So now to go back to Eritrea, to take them children there, they scared to go back. And now they're forcing themselves, some of them, they are going to Cairo, who have a little bit of money, who don't have, there are thousands of them sitting in Saudi Arabia, and they can't do anything. I had an opportunity, I make a call to Mohammed Al-Nusur, the Human Rights Commissioner for Middle East and North Africa. I called him and I explained to him the issue. He told me that, you know, he can look at it after the coronavirus. But those people, they are very seriously, they have a very, a difficult situation at the moment now, especially with those coronavirus. My, the reason that I bring this, how we can help those people. They cannot go back to Eritrea. They can go back to Eritrea if they get a little bit of money, but the Eritrean government as well, they don't have any money for them, and them land given to other people as well. This one is, please, John, I want you to take it a bit serious. I can provide you with the information from the people who are group who are like, they have a small committee, registered all the people who are living in Saudi Arabia. One thing to mention is the people who are flee, when Asiyas come into the power, they're not gonna come back to Eritrea. That 100%. But we've got thousands of people that are really interested to go back to Eritrea because they've got no choice or no chance to live in any countries. This is one of the issues. Because you've got a lot of line, I have a lot of things to say, but now I just to stop it in that one. But if that, please, you take it serious, and I can provide you with the details that you need. Thank you for Fox.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Hassan. Should we answer these questions and then next two groups, and then we will close the meeting? Yeah.
Yeah.
So shall we start with?
If the question was put to John, I think you should communicate privately with John, and John can discuss it with you.
Yeah.
Is that responsive?
Yeah.
About getting
John,
Eritrea
would you like to answer to Hassan's question?
Yeah, that's fine. My email is John with an H, John at Eritrean Refugees with an S, EritreanRefugees.org.
Thank you. And
can you repeat that again? Sorry, I missed it. Or you can give it to me to Sarah. That would be good for me, Sarah. John, you can write it on chat, and then Hassan, you can pick it from there. Yeah. Segal and Gabriel, can you answer Mabrahtu's question?
Okay, I think, yes, it was difficult at the beginning to open bank account. I don't see that now is like a problem. We are opening bank account in Hapolim and Bank Lumi, like the two banks. But the problem, what I see is we are living in a constant fear of uncertainty, also deportation. People are like, not feeling safe to put their money. That's why they send it to Eritrea, and then they become like a victim. For example, when there was the deportation of Rwanda, Uganda, people were being sent to one of the center Holot. They've been kept there, and then for a long time, then they will be deported. This region, like for many people, like makes them like that's their bank account, and it's also difficult for them to open again. So the thing that for most of the people that they send their money, they don't feel like secure. But I am one of the majority have the bank account, and then the money, like all of you know, like the money is like in complexity, but the organization is also helping, and people can open account. If Sigal can add also.
No, you said everything perfectly. Thank you. Okay, the next question, the next person would be Petros Tesfagergis.
There is a hidden famine in Eritrea now. News from Eritrea is very disturbing. In fact, they are saying that, please, please, we are starving, help us. And there is also a very sad news from the lowlands. In the town of Haikota, children are dying from malnutrition. What's happening is that there are three things now. One, the regime is not interested in feeding the population. In fact, on the contrary, what's happening is that the regime has refused to accept aid from the Chinese billionaire Jack Ma and his Alibaba friend. The most amazing thing is that the United Arab Emirates, which had a camp, military camp in Eritrea, in Assab, where the Afars live, they offered help to the community there because they thought they are starving. But the regime is reluctant, not only reluctant, but they get so angry and some sort of reprimanded them. So what's going on is that it's deliberate now. It has been proven. So instead, we were talking about money to go to Eritrea from the European Union. And it is not proper now to ask them to give priority to feeding the people and channel the money they are intending to go to road construction instead to feed the hungry people. Is that not the priority of the Eritrean people at the moment? So what can be done in this case now? This is my question.
Thank you, Peter. Next is Dr. Abdul Qadir Daud. Abdul Qadir Daud, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, I just want to thank all the presenters, and it was an excellent one and insight, and I was touched, in fact, by the work that John mentioned about the displaced Eritreans, working with around 25 countries and things, so that is an excellent one. I have one small question, but I wanted to second what the question, excellent question Dr. Gabri asked, and also the priority and the emphasis that put by Dr. Hapti as well. And especially I was touched when he said Eritrea belonged to all Eritreans. I think that is always, it is the very important point, whatever political parties we believe in. I think the objective at the end of the day is for the betterment of Eritrea. And also, but that in itself, always we say Eritrea belongs to all Eritreans and things like that. I think we have to focus on what makes that sort of the unity strong. We have to focus on the strong bonds that we have, and we have a history, whether it is during the liberation struggle time, and before that, what during the peace struggle, for example, and we had the first African country in 1952. We had a constitution. I think we have good things there, and I think that will help us to strengthen that relations. And I am sure, I think the way Eritrea Focus is working, I think that will help in bring people together and discuss the issues. My question is to Dr. Hapti. He mentioned that he was invited to a meeting through his contact from the Eritrean Focus chapter here, and then he had an opportunity to attend and then present issues to do with religious persecution. It could be other as well. Just my question is, does the UK Eritrean Focus chapter has any sort of contact with the EU countries, for example, just to also work with them and things like that. And thank you very much for that.
Dr. Adebesai?
Okay, thank you. Actually, mine is not a question, it's a comment. And I just really like to reiterate what Hafte had said earlier. The reason why Eritreans in the diaspora who are really concerned about our people and our country are becoming ineffective is because we are not speaking with one voice. I remember one time I had a chance to talk to the person in charge of the Eritrea desk at the State Department, and I remember what she told me. What she told me was, she was actually teasing me. She said, Araya, your country is not even the size of Pennsylvania. By the way, both David and Mike are from Pennsylvania. And she said, for a country as small as Pennsylvania, why do you need to have so many political parties? She said, we are willing to help your country because we do really sympathize with the Eritrean people, but whom do we help, you know? And then the other day, I was listening to Radio Irena, in General Mesfin Hagos was telling about his experience when he visits some of the countries who are supposed to help us, telling him that who can we help? If you can come with one voice together, we may be in a position to help. As you are now so fragmented, you know, we don't know whom to help. So the point I like to stress among all of us is we really need to create that mechanism that will help us to speak with one voice. And I think the Yakel movement that's going throughout the world is gathering momentum. I think we need to support it so that it can be successful, so that it can generate to us a group who have the mandate and the legitimacy to speak on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
You are muted. Sarah.
Sorry, yeah. Anyone who would like to comment, or experts, can you comment?
Shall I come back on the points raised by Petros and Abdul Qadir, if I may, please?
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll start with a question from Petros in terms of food aid for Eritrea of some sort to stave off the imminent starvation of our people. That's a very difficult situation on two fronts. The first is convincing the Europeans to actually give aid to Eritrea, fully knowing that the government may not expend the money that they are given for the purpose the money is given in the first place. And the second is, and it goes back to the point you made, Petros, that the Eritrean government itself refuses aid. It declined the COVID aid proposed and allocated by the Chinese and others. Now, what chance do the European Union have to actually twist the arms of the regime and say, take this money and give it to the starving people? It's not going to happen. And this is the problem we have. When you have a government that is hell-bent really to starving its people, where do you go? I really do not have an answer to that, but simply pose the question. Abdul Qadir's question in terms of engagement with the European Union is very important. I mean, the fact that the UK is leaving, or has left, in fact, at the end of January, the European Union is makes things a little bit difficult for Eritrea Focus. But it does not make it impossible, to be honest with you, for us to engage with the European community through our friends and our partners. You heard earlier, Clara, with whom we work very, very well, very closely. And they have good links to the European Union. So there is a way of doing it. It's not something we have actually done as much as we could. We've tried, but we have not been as successful as we want. But that is something we could do. The other angle we are looking into, very briefly, Sarah, if I may, is the possibility of extending litigation to Germany. Germany, as you know, is the largest country in Western Europe. It has the most number of Eritrean refugees, and it contributes significantly more to the European budget than other countries. Now, what we will do, and we just have started the motion moving, is engage a humanitarian law firm to help us take legal action in Germany too. Yeah? And if we were to succeed, and there is no guarantee we will do, I mean, they're looking and assessing our proposals, but if that was to come to fruition, then I think it would have a huge implications on what the European Union can do, even in its relationship with Eritrea. But as I say, that is only just beginning. But a very, very important question, Abdul Qadir, and thank you for raising it.
Sarah, I'm sorry, but it's now 3.5 hours into this meeting, and I have to leave. So can somebody else take the minutes, please, or the notes, because I can't continue.
I shall carry on. Martin,
I'll take over, Martin.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, before Martin he go, because in Europe I had just small things for him, just one question before he go. I tried to write for him in his email. I couldn't get a chance to write for him a letter, because just please, Sarah, give me this chance before he go. He can answer me at any time in my email. That's all. Can I say something to him? Yes. Hi, Martin. What happened is, my question is, you know, what they saying is we have to engage to the European government or the American government. What happened in Sweden is, or in Germany or in France or in England, they asking all the refugee Eritrean, bring your ID that you are a true Eritrean. So what happened to those refugees? They flee from the dictator government, and they're asking them to go back to the embassy of Eritrea to bring for them an ID that they are Eritrean. They are Europe, they playing a very double standard. And now what happened to the Eritrean government is they playing a very dirty game. They showing the Europe that those young Eritrean, look at this, they didn't flee from the country because of a human rights issue. They flee because of economy problems. That's why the Europe, they support them with $200 million. Look, the British, what they are doing. They are asking the young people who are flee from there, go to the embassy and bring for them a paper that you are true Eritrean. This is the problem what we've got. That's why most of the young Eritrean, they are now scared even to open their mouths to talk, because they have to sign that paper, sorry to the Eritrean government, and then after that they give him the ID. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome, Hassan. Thank you. So the next two people and the last two questions are from Sahanair and Fisahaye. Sahanair, can you go ahead and make it brief, please?
Sahanair.
Sahanair?
Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
Yes. First and foremost, I would like to thank you, the presenters, from three parts. One from UK, the other from USA, the third is from Israel. The resistance and the external pressure created by the three teams are very interesting, and the incitement for the others in the camp for peace, democracy, and human rights in Eritrea. That stimulates us. Thank you. Mobilizing world public opinion has been these 20 years does not work. In every country, for example, Western Europe, America, and Israel. Mobilizing is very important against the dictatorship on human rights, moral, religious goods. And efforts can be taken, as Hakte has said, that diplomatic, political, and economic sanctions are very important to gain support from international community. For example, I came from Sweden. I live in Sweden since 80s. I am the eldest activist. When we approach the Swedish government and organizations, government organs, and the other public civil associations of Sweden, they ask us always, why do you come separately? Why don't you make a one delegation for all Eritreans in Sweden or regionally in Europe or globally? This question has been raised by Hapto also. But what can you help us about, for example, the new generation are the next who are responsible. For example, myself, I am a little elder. We have about 41,000 Eritreans in Sweden. As our brother said before, this, for example, I use it to give them social orientation about Sweden. When I ask them if they are in resistance, they do nothing. They are asked to go to the embassy of Eritrea and bring ID. Therefore, they are still intimidated by the regime. As the regime said, my hands are long. Even if you escape from Eritrea, I will get you. Therefore, how can you help us to influence these countries that they should not enforce refugees go back to the embassy of the dictator and ask for ID? Then I would like to ask the Israel team, and I'm very appreciated by their activities, Gabriel, Melas, and Sigal. I have been following the situation of refugees in Israel. You have done a lot of efforts to soften the Israeli government's policy. How is, for example, I have seen the demonstrations against the supporters of the regime, but most of the regime supporters are refugees. And even the opposition who oppose or who fight for democracy, they invest. I have people I know, they invest, for example, to build a house in Asmar. As Dr. told before, how can you invest in a country where there is no freedom of investing if you don't have guarantee? And you escape it from a country, isn't that double standard? Therefore, how is the situation now? Are you still divided into two groups? But Gabriel told us that at this time, after the Ethiopian-Eritrean peace deal, when Isaias went to Addis and gave up his hand, saying that he is not concerned about Eritrea, but concerned about the whole Ethiopia. Then Gabriel told us that now, this time, they are gaining support from those who were the supporters of the regime. How is the situation now? Israel team, about the lobby from USA, John. How is the situation, for example, as our friend have asked, the situation of refugees in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia especially, at this time, if they go back to Eritrea, I will shorten it. how can you help us with the Saudi authorities that they should not send them back, even they can help them financially? These are the two questions for the presenters. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Fasahaye, can you make it brief, please? I think people are a bit tired.
Okay, I'm the last person, so it is either way. Either I shorten it or I take it long way. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the presenters. I really appreciate that. I just want to come on after the regime change. This is because one of the topics. So I want to ask especially the presenters for the excellent presentation you do and for the excellent work that you are doing. First, I want to appreciate. See, in our history as Eritreans, even during armed struggle, we never had a united diplomatic work, a united humanitarian work. We always had a problem when it comes to unifying our approach to work, okay? Especially when it engages something power. So that is a backdrop we have. We have always this question which has never been solved. The independence came, and even after independence, we had a problem. So this is where I want to ask you. Friends of Eritrea has been always amazing. Even during our armed struggle, we had amazing friends of Eritrea who highlighted the case of Eritrea, the refugee issue of Eritrea. But what did the government of Eritrea do? Before starting prisoning Eritreans, the government of Eritrea, the first thing they did is they kicked out the friends of Eritrea because they started to be the watchdog of the government. And this might happen tomorrow as well to you guys. You are helping us now to advocate for the refugee cause, for many things. So it is something to watch, because yesterday's freedom fighters, they became current dictators. Okay, today's justice seekers, they could be the same thing. Okay, so that is a warning, as well as I think to persist on helping Eritreans. Okay, this universal human right issue, this universal justice to continue. I mean, Petros is here. I think his brother Paulos is one of the first victims when it came to form a humanitarian organization. He was shut down. So that is one thing. I think I want you to come back on your continuity. Well, I don't know if you could answer, but it is something maybe you have experience from other countries as well. But for us Eritreans also, other thing I want, how many human rights organizations do we have Eritreans? We don't need to have duplication. I do understand to have political parties. They might have program, they might have mission, objective needs. But why do human rights organizations need to be duplicated while they are working for the same? Still, this is also an issue, because those human rights organizations, sometimes they either stay human rights organizations, then they convert themselves to political groups, or they were political groups and then they go to the human rights organizations. So the issue of unity is very important. I think we are learning a lot here, but I want you really to address the transition period and the continuity of helping the Eritreans to be free from oppression, to have human right continuity, as well as you guys to stay neutral in our process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Fasahaye. In 2 or 3 minutes, can you please respond to the questions?
Just very briefly, Sarah, in terms of unity, I don't think I have an answer. It's a challenge. We need to work on it. But as you say, our history tells us we can work together if we want to. In terms of the human rights groups, absolutely right. I think there is a lot of duplication. We could do a lot to streamline the process. And one of the first things Eritrea Focus did when it was set up in 2014 was to reach out to other human rights groups, asking them if we could work together. And I think we wrote to about a dozen or so. And only 2 actually replied. And those 2, we have not progressed much. Now, we are willing, really, as an organization. Our aim is to make a difference for the Eritrean people, not a difference for ourselves. And if we can work with others, we would be delighted to do so.
Thank you, Hapte. Any other person? Anyone? John, there was one question addressed to you.
Is John gone, I think, or I can't see.
Mike, John, or anyone else who would like to answer any of the questions?
I think there is one like regarding to the Israel.
All right, go ahead.
We've started. I think he mentioned about the regime supporters and the oppositions. This is one of the main problem also, like in our status in Israel. You know, like the Israeli government is like, they have relationship, it's like strategic relationship with the Eritrea, even if they don't make it public, they want to keep it because it's like a national interest. So when they were making all the campaign, they were trying to make us, to give out the picture that we are coming to Israel like motivated by the economy. For this reason, also they show like for all the students, Eritreans who ran away from Eritrea, been living in Israel, and then celebrating and dancing in the Eritrean embassy like events. So this is like the picture that they use like against our image. I think this is one of the problems that we have, also the Eritreans, that when we were crying when we were in Sinai, like to pass, then when we just reached the place that we were safe, and then we changed, like we saw it from many people. But I have one issue on this. The Eritrean government has the control ability, like you cannot, if you want to build a house in Eritrea, that you need his permission. If when you die, like you want to send your body here, you need your permission, which is like for everything he has a power that can make people like to be under his like coming toward the regime. This is the thing that we are lacking from diaspora. If we can say like we don't give like an alternative for the Eritrean people who are living on outside. If we can say like can give documents like as an alternative, like the Eritrean government, maybe we can influence all the embassies. This is the issue of what the Sweden, like all the refugees who want to join their family in Europe, in Germany, in Holland, in Sweden, they need to bring the Eritrean passport. People who refuse to hold the Eritrean passport, still they are stuck in Israel. But if, as Eritrean, if we create as an alternative, making a lobby, there was a powerful power that we can change this influence. I can give you an example. In 2009 or 2010, we have an Eritrean who was been in prison, that was being considered like Ethiopian. We brought a letter from American team that explained that he is Eritrean with a witness. It helps him to be released from prison after 1 year. But the problem is, like all the Eritrean people, when they approach to the countries, they approach with the letter of EPDP, they approach with the ANSF, they approach with this. There is no common, like we need to have a common identity rather than main identity. This is the thing that we can do, then it can solve the problem, rather than having many identity. That's what I just want to emphasize on this issue that can solve. Also for this reason, sorry, like now, we're 1 minute, 1 second. I saw like almost 100 doctors, Eritrean professionals, educate people, join together. They can make big influence. They have to work on this issue. Then they can unite it by present papers. It's like the easiest way to solve the problem. If our educated people being united, working together, all the problem can be solved. We can, like our problem will be shortened like very quickly.
Thank you, Gabriel.
I think.
Anyone else who would like to comment here before we close it?
Yeah, I think time is up.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think we've been here for a while. I think people are tired. So before I give the floor to Eritrea Focus to close to conclude and close it, I would like to thank everyone for your patience. I would like to thank our expert panelists for the wonderful job that you're doing and for your wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you, John, for looking after women who are having problems everywhere. I'm from Network of Eritrean Women, so I feel I have this, close attachment with women's issues. And thank you, everyone, for everything that you're doing, and all for everyone for sitting here and listening patiently, throughout for about 3.5, almost 4 hours now. Thank you so much. So I will leave the floor to probably Helen. Helen, would you like to? Yeah, Helen will give us the conclusion.
Dr. is asking.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll be doing. My name is Helen Kidan. I'm a member of Eritrea Focus, and I'm doing the concluding remarks. I'd like to say thank you to all the presenters, the speakers, all the organizers, and to the participants who have really enriched this discussion. This is a discussion that we could all go on all night, and this is the start of many discussions, but not, it's the beginning of many discussions, but not the end. So although we are limited by time and we're closing it now, this is going to be a huge discussion. A lot of the points raised in today's meeting were were important. Learning what was being done with the all-party parliamentary group in the UK in respect to Eritrea, looking at the lobbying that's been done in America and also in the state of Israel, and the challenges that Eritreans are facing, whether it's refugees, whether it's Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the EU relations with the Eritrean government. A lot of these issues, yes, there is, in terms of Sweden, what I wanted to say was that there are a lot of Swedish parliamentarians that do support the Eritrean case, especially because of Dawit Isaak and other prominent journalists. There is a lot of movement in that sphere. But I think as Eritreans, we need to really channel our way into how we engage with international democracies, so that we have a more streamed way of doing it, because there are interested parliamentarians across Europe, but it is really fully engaging with them and working with them that is critical. Eritrea does have a history of democracy. In the 40s, in the 50s, we had parliaments, we had independent press, but also in our cultural history, we have Hagidaba, which is the law of our forefathers. So democracy is not something new to the Eritrean people. It is only during the militarization of the process during the armed struggle that we have, in a sense, lost that kind of freedoms that we had. But democracy in itself is not a new phenomenon for Eritreans. But the issue that we find ourselves in is complex. And my view from all the discussions taken is that whilst we may be in a very dark place at this moment in time, the fact that all of you are here and presented your ideas is a great hope for Eritrea, because it is through discussion, through debates, and through this way that we can build tolerance, understanding, and a better future for Eritrea. So, all I'd want to say is thank you very much. Let's carry on with the discussions. Let's work towards a democratic Eritrea. Let's build what we have inside ourselves as Eritreans as well, through our local customs law, through all of the things that enrich us. And we fought for war against all the odds, got our independence, and through all the odds, I also believe that we will win this war. But it takes an effort and a commitment from all of us. And to all the friends of Eritrean here, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Tahanaguru.
Good night, then. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.